Welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us here today. Hope you're having a great one. It is Friday. It's a beautiful day outside in South Bend. It's a beautiful day inside in the studios and in the living room / den area of one Mr. Eric Hansen from blueandgold.com. How are you today, Eric?
I'm good. Somebody thought this was my bedroom. I thought, boy, they must think I make a lot more money with couches and stuff in my bedroom. Maybe some people have that. I don't.
Penthouse suite. I don't either. My bedroom is just enough for the bed and a little bit of a couple little furniture in there. That's about it. Well, I'm sure people came to the show today to talk about more than just our living attire in our domiciles, but we got to see a little bit of practice this morning, the final practice viewing that we got. We're going to talk about quarterbacks today, and I know there's a lot of smoke kind of going up in the air about
who's blowing that smoke, Sean.
Where could that come from? Did somebody start a fire? I don't know exactly where that might have happened, but we're going to talk about quarterbacks. But in terms of some, the specific stuff, our policy has always kind of been, once an official announcement is made, we'll go there, with that kind of stuff. But we'll talk plenty of quarterback stuff today. What do you think?
I'm all for it.
All right. So we did have a 4-period practice viewing this morning. Didn't see a lot. I know you and I were over by the offensive lineman for a little bit. Any particular takeaways that you brought from this morning's final practice viewing?
Well, it shows that if you don't know the team very well, you could certainly put things out of context. Tyler Buckner was the first quarterback we saw throw passes today, but what they've been doing in an early period after stretching is having kind of like the third team play. Right. So if you want the scoop on who the third teamer was today, it was Tyler Buckner was the third team quarterback. What I took from practice today, probably my biggest takeaway, was watching the offensive line. I love how Joe Rudolph teaches the offensive line. Now, what's going on with the Gerby Lambert, Sullivan Apsher battle at right guard? We saw both of them kind of take number one reps. We didn't see the line necessarily line up, but we saw combo drills where they were working. Each of them worked with some first teamers and they worked with second teamers. So it seems like that this is indeed a situation where Gerby Lambert is seriously challenging and may overtake Sullivan Apsher. But we'll get an update, I would imagine, on Sunday from Marcus Freeman on that.
Yeah, I'm curious how much of those kind of matters we're going to hear definitively from Marcus Freeman, whether it is right guards or quarterbacks or safeties or whichever position.
Well, Mike Mickens wasn't too forthcoming on the safeties today, so
he was not.
He wants to be the last position to be revealed.
He had his tap dance shoes on out there when he was asked about the safeties. He didn't want to go into
what? Marty Biagi was pretty revealing. There was some good stuff coming from the special teams coach.
You're exactly right about that. And we will hear some of that coming up in a little bit. We're going to hear from both Mike Mickens and Marty Biagi. And I thought Biagi maybe had sort of the official news of the day, or, maybe it's still unofficial what he told us, but I thought it was pretty significant. But we'll save that for a little bit, what he had to say about some particular special teams news. Let's just get into the quarterback talk, because that is obviously the buzz still. People want to know what's going on with the quarterback, who's going to be the starter, obviously. And, again, there's smoke flaring up everywhere. You do your weekly chat at blueandgold.com, your live chat, and you fielded several questions about the quarterback competition in there, and I thought a few of them would be good to discuss here this afternoon. Starting with this one, seems like the quarterback race may be closer than was predicted. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I think historically it could go either way. I that's a really good question. And for me, in just talking with some sources and what I've been able to view in practice, I actually think in this situation, it's a really good thing. Sometimes you have two guys, they don't separate, they separate late, and it's kind of you're defaulting into either the safe choice or the lesser of two evils. In this case, I feel like Kenny Minchey improved so much. It started to push CJ Carr into being a better quarterback. And then they both kind of like at the end of a really great distance race, they both kind of went off together.
Right.
I think that's where we are. I think we've seen a higher level from those two quarterbacks. So I actually think the closeness of this race turned out to be a good thing.
I do too, because even though going back to what we got to see in the spring, we've talked about it before. I know you've talked about it as well. We obviously didn't get to see a lot, but we got to see at the end of spring, we got to see a live scrimmage, and then we got to see the blue gold game. And I won't say that there was massive separation between the two, but most people who watched, and obviously Steve Angeli was still in the mix there as well. So you had a lot of Steve Angeli backers going into that blue gold game that everyone got to see. And a lot of them were swung over to CJ Carr after watching the blue gold game, seeing how, CJ Carr operated and ran the offense, his level of anticipation, and just, a lot of different things that he had. And it just felt like, again, while there might not have been a huge gap between he and Kenny Minchey, it sure felt like he was ahead of Kenny Minchey at that point. But I think the fact, as you said, the fact that this quarterback race has been as close as it is, and we're not quite 2.5 weeks, we're 2+ weeks into training camp. The fact that it as close as it is means that Kenny Minchey at least made up some ground and has made a very good case for himself at the very least, and made a very close competition out of this.
Yeah, and I think it also bodes well as you get into the season if somebody gets hurt or if you feel like there's a certain opponent where you can expose that defense with a change-up quarterback with a package of plays or a certain place on the field. I don't think Marcus Freeman at all, and I know Mike Denbrock doesn't want to do the co-quarterback thing like they tried to do at the start of 2016, which was a disaster.
That just, disaster is the perfect word. Yes.
But there may be a role for that number 2 quarterback. And as long as they're engaged and they keep improving, I think this is a really good thing for Notre Dame. We saw little stretches even last year with Riley Leonard being the number 1, where Steve Angeli being an engaged, really competent number 2 made the difference in some games.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously he made a huge difference in, at the end of the first half in the Orange Bowl in the college football playoff semifinal. And I think that there is a definite case. Again, I think we've kind of been fairly consistent with this. If CJ was the guy who won the job, it seemed like there was a definite package type situation for a guy like Kenny Minchey, but going off what you're talking about, where there could be a place for the number 2 guy. If you flip it around and it is Minchey, what's the situation that makes sense for CJ Carr, do you think?
I think it's less obvious.
Right.
When you think about what does CJ Carr do well, I think maybe the niche for him would be 2-minute drill, being able to get the ball downfield with downfield passing in a rapid fire session. Then you don't need the legs as much from the quarterback because CJ is a good enough with his feet that he can extend plays. And you're not looking for quarterback runs usually, planned quarterback runs in a 2-minute situation. He may have to scramble. I think he's good enough to do that.
Yeah.
But you want somebody that can get you that long field rhythm passing, kind of like Jack Cohn. Jack Cohn was really good with that. That's kind of how Notre Dame unlocked the key to getting towards his ceiling in 2021 was, I think it was Virginia Tech. He came in and he was in a 2-minute drill really good. And they were like, wait a second, why don't we kind of create that kind of rhythm with him throughout the game?
Right.
So,
right. That's very true. That's kind of where I think his play, as you said, swung down the stretch of that season was once they kind of figured some of that stuff out. And it was obviously a very odd one with Buckner coming in and then having to go back out.
And Buckner almost overtook him in that Virginia Tech game. We almost had a change of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And that 2-minute drill, I think, changed that season.
Yep, for sure. For sure. A couple questions here from the live YouTube chat. Sean Kelly asks, who has a bigger / stronger arm from what we've seen?
I would say CJ has the stronger arm. I think he's also more accurate, but I think Kenny has arm talent. I think that's been kind of undervalued in his package, was how good his arm is. I think where maybe we didn't judge it as much as because of Kenny's mistakes. And so you didn't see him throw with as much confidence as he's throwing now. But I think he's got good arm strength, but I do think CJ has the edge there. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think that CJ has at least a slightly stronger arm, but like when you look at Kenny Minchey's game, the ability to throw off platform and do some of those different things, I think that Kenny Minchey excels at those kind of things. We've seen him really, like when you look at the kind of throws that he's made, like we see him push the ball a lot more downfield, it seems like. But like when you've watched the two, there's been kind of, it's felt like CJ Carr maybe hits the layups a little bit more, or at least is looking layups sometimes a little bit more. Now, day one of this, we just saw a lot of check down stuff, interceptions, it felt like, just because of the way things ran. But that was still a bit different than anything else that we've got to see.
But the context in day one also was create chaos, and they're going to see chaos in games. But I think we've seen CJ Carr, for example, in the blue gold game, two of his most beautiful passes were to Kevin Bauman and Jack Larson. And Don Schuler was defending at least one of them and maybe both of them on those plays. And that took some precision to hit that sideline, kind of a deep sideline pattern to each of those guys. So that part of CJ Carr still exists, not just the interception version.
Right. Scott L. Esquire says the only thing he wants to know about the quarterbacks is whether or not Kenny's listed height on the roster is legit. He is listed at 6'2". I guess I've never actually stood right next to him. I don't know if you have. I believe we were all seated, or at least he was seated and I was standing when we got to talk to him a couple of weeks ago. How close to 6'2" do you think Kenny is?
I think he is. I don't think Notre Dame fudges with those anymore. I think there was a time where they did.
Yeah.
I don't think that they do right now.
When you look at some of the,
I don't remember looking at him saying, "Oh, he's 5'11" or something like that." I mean, he looks 6'2". I mean, he's built a little bit different. I think CJ looks more 6'2"-ish because of the way his build is, but I think Kenny's 6'2".
I do.
I'll try to, next time we're in front of him, I'll try to stand next to him and see how close I am to him, because I'm not 6'2". We'll have Tyler James do it. He's
neither one of us. 6'2". Neither one of us. They had those. The offensive linemen had those. I don't know exactly what you call the contraption. We were joking that.
Oh yeah.
You and I almost could have walked underneath them without.
It looks like a trampoline almost that you have to walk under, or you have to block under, and we had to walk under it. Sean and I almost didn't have to bend at all.
All right, we've got some more quarterback questions that Eric fielded in his live chat this week. Do you think there's any chance Freeman would just wait until game day or very close to game day to publicly announce who the starter is?
No, I don't think that. I that's not his game, and I don't think he really sees it as a tactical advantage. I mean, you've got 4 game reps of film on each of those guys from last year. I just don't think he'll do it. I think he'll announce as soon as he knows. I'm hoping that we know Sunday, and I think we'll know Sunday. I know that they were prepared to go longer if they had to, but their hope was that they'd know by Sunday, and I think they will.
Yeah, I do too. And that's the way I'm leaning. When we talked last week, a week ago today, we were saying, we were targeting that press conference that Marcus Freeman, Mike Denbrock, and Chris Ash have this Sunday. And of course, that'll be at noon. There's no surprise there. There's no practice availability or anything like that. So obviously, fans will be able to watch that press conference at noon that Marcus Freeman will have this Sunday. It feels like it's leading up to that, like some kind of either the announcement is Sunday or maybe something comes before then, and Freeman just kind of makes it official and gives us some details hopefully on Sunday. I don't think he's gonna push it back to the week of Miami or the day of Miami or whatever else. So regardless of where we are and who it ends up being at this point, again, this is another question from Eric's live chat this week. How significant do you expect the growing pains to be with a first-time starting quarterback? And related, how do you expect the quarterback position to fare in such a challenging set of games to open the season on the road at Miami, and obviously a home game and a night atmosphere the next or 2 weeks later, I guess, against Texas A&M?
Okay, well, I'll take the first one first. I don't anticipate significant growing pains for a couple of reasons. One, I think the talent level of these two is so high that inexperience doesn't mean that you don't have talent. There's been inexperienced quarterbacks play for Notre Dame and other people before that, experience mattered to them, or experience wasn't going to make them any better, and there was going to be growing pains. But you think about the context around them. Think about 2007 when Jimmy Clausen, it was the Demetrius Jones, Evan Sharpley, Jimmy Clausen fiasco. But
yeah,
Jimmy had nothing around him. He had a rebuilt offensive line. They didn't have a running game. They didn't have a very good defense. There was nothing really to hang your hat on around the quarterback. You look at this team, I mean, we're talking about, who's going to be the third string tight end. I mean, these are first world problems around, that they've been going through camp with, with 2007 and some of these other years, they've had serious, even last year, the offensive line was a real adventure, and having a guy with the mobility of Riley Leonard made it less of one. But I don't think the growing pains are going to be as bad as people think, even going against some really good teams. Now, how difficult are these teams? I mean, according to the AP poll, which I vote in, these are the best teams on the schedule coming out of the gate on Notre Dame's schedule. That doesn't always work out that way in reality, but that's what's projected to be. And both of those teams, we do know this, they have some really good edge rushers. But again, Notre Dame possibly has a Joe Moore Award contending offensive line, which is a comforting thought, knowing where the quarterbacks are.
And 2 home run threats for running backs as well.
Absolutely.
And to go behind that offensive line. And that's I think, I'm not going to say that's the only decision, the only part of the decision, but when you look at all the factors, if you go back, and like the decision not to go with another transfer portal quarterback, the fact that you had such a good offensive line that you knew was going to be coming back, the fact that you've got a guy who's going to be who is a Heisman Trophy candidate coming into the season in Jeremiah Love, and a really good 1A with Jadarian Price back there as well. Like a lot of quarterbacks, especially a lot of young quarterbacks who are making their first career start, would like to have those two things that they can lean on, and that's a real luxury for a young, at least inexperienced. I guess Kenny Minchey's going into his 3rd season now, so he's been around a little bit, but he's still inexperienced in terms of real playing time. But from the quarterback coach and the offensive coordinator, for them to be able to lean on those things, I think that helps them out quite a bit, because what's Marcus Freeman always said? He wants to be an offensive, defensive line driven team, and he knows that he can lean on that offensive line and those dynamic running backs that he's got to help him out. And that's something that the running backs kind of talked about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago when we got to talk to him, and J1 Sider as well, the fact that you do have those guys like Love and Price who are back there who can help the quarterbacks in the backfield with some of those checks and reads and that kind of thing.
They sure can. And Jawan Sider has been a big asset to this team in terms of him getting the running backs acclimated to reading defenses and really knowing the bigger picture back there. But but the one thing is, in terms of, you got all this stuff around them, teams are still going to make those quarterbacks prove themselves with their arms. They're going to load up their defenses and tilt them to say, okay, we know you have great running backs. Guess what? 8 in the box, 9 in the box. Go beat us downfield. Let's see if you can do that. So there's going to be some of that. With Kenny Minchey, you have an added dimension of having a running quarterback who can unload the box, as Riley Leonard was able to do last year. But they're going to have to prove that they can throw downfield. And the good news is Mike Denbrock thinks they can throw downfield, and he wants to throw downfield this year.
Exactly. And he's got the kind of receivers that he can throw downfield to. That is one thing. I believe that if it wasn't Mike Mickens, it was Christian Gray. It might have been Christian Gray toward the end was talking about. Yeah, it was Christian Gray. He was talking about how diverse this wide receiver group is today at the end of the press conference this afternoon, and just all the different things they can do. So I think that there's a lot of potential mixing and matching that they can do with that receiver group to help out the quarterback as well.
And another thing about the receivers, and talking to Leonard Moore today, he said, I don't know that I'm going to see a receiver that's as physical and as fast combination of as Malachi Fields the rest of the season, what he sees in practice every day.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Another question from your blueandgold.com live chat this week. Will the delay in declaring the starter mean whoever is under center when they play Miami won't be able to utilize the full playbook and have to rely on the run game much, much more, giving the Hurricanes the chance to load the box? We kind of addressed some of this a little bit, but he says he's worried the starter might play the first few games, quote unquote, managing the offense would be a recipe for a slow start to the season. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't agree it would be a slow start to the season. So let's break that up a little bit. I think what he's getting at is the length of this quarterback competition hurting the offense.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the answer is twofold. One is, even if this had ended 3 days into camp, I think that Mike Denbrock, the way that he goes with a first-year starting quarterback, and even sometimes with a more experienced quarterback, is he feeds them a little bit more of the playbook every week anyways. For example, when Jaden Daniels came to LSU, not in his Heisman year, but the year before, he gave him, okay, here's the plays that I think he can execute and he's really good at. And then each week get him good at a few more plays. So it's not like you're taking plays out of the playbook, but you're just making it smaller. You're not saying, well, we're only going to run the ball. We're not going to do these really good pass plays. It's just there's going to be less of a variety. He did it with Deshaun Kaiser too in 2015 when he was the offensive play caller. When Malik Zaire got hurt in game 2 at Virginia, he gave Kaiser a little bit more of the playbook every week. So I think this is Mike Denbrock's process anyways. Now, did the length of this quarterback competition hurt it? No, because these guys have been in the Mike Denbrock system for a whole year before this, even though CJ was injured last year a little bit during practice. But so they're familiar with this. It's Riley Leonard had a much harder kind of crash course on the offense last year than these two will. And so I don't think it's going to hurt them. Will they look more like a game manager in the first few weeks? Maybe. Yeah. I mean, but again, I think they don't say no pass plays, let's just hand it off. It's just going to be a smaller version of the pass plays, a smaller version of the run plays until they get really good at them, and then they expand.
Yeah, a couple things. One, I think that there was some buffer for both of these guys, Carr and Minchey, last year because, as you said, they were in the Denbrock system for a year, but they were also the 3 and 4 guys. Like the buffer was Steve Angeli being the number 2, while Riley Leonard had to go through the growing pains during the season, and Jelly was still there, absorbing what he needed to and being the backup. While these two guys, essentially, whether Carr was able to play or not, they were still in the film room and still engaging in all of this different stuff and able to absorb it at a much slower rate. There wasn't nearly as much pressure on them, to obviously to have to, sort of be able to regurgitate it and use it last year. But they've, to your point, they've both been in the system for a year plus now, going on year 2. So I think that was a great benefit. I do wonder, again, regardless of who it ends up being, like you were talking about conservative game plans and stuff like, like it felt like at Ohio State when Tyler Buckner made his first start, that was a very conservative game plan. Do you think, again, different offensive?
That wasn't Mike Denbrock doing that.
Right. So, and that's what I was saying. It feels like I don't think we'll be to that degree going to Miami in 2 weeks.
So I had a conversation, and I did a 2-part series on this with Greg McElroy, who works for ESPN, does a great job with both his podcast and doing analysis for games for ABC and ESPN. And Greg was a first-year starter at Alabama when they won the national championship in 2009. So there have been 16 national champions, including that year since then. 9 of them have been first-year starters, so he's one of them. And he said, here's the key to a first-year starter. Here's the process with a guy like Denbrock. Not all offensive coordinators, but he knows Mike Denbrock well. They did a lot of Notre Dame games last year, including the playoffs.
Yep.
He said the key is that young quarterback being able to tell the play caller, I don't like that play on third down. I don't think I would do well with that play on third down. So it's a give and take. And that's what turned the key with Riley Leonard last year.
Yeah.
If you think about that first bye week when Mike Denbrock and Riley started having coffee and bagels in the morning and talking over those things, that's when Riley started to take off in terms of getting the offense and being good at it. He said a lot of times young quarterbacks, they want to be, I'm all in, coach, 1,020%. Well, they're going to have to, it's got to be a give and take between the first-year quarterback and the offensive coordinator if it's really going to accelerate. And I think that's really what the process looks like.
And I'm curious how much a first-time starting quarterback has that comfort level to tell Mike Denbrock those kind of things.
Usually not, and Mike Denbrock really needs to encourage that. And I think once they name the number one, that will be the next step, is sitting down and saying, okay, Kenny or CJ, what do you think about this on third and short? What do you think about this? And then they'll go through that. And this is really, let's say they name the starter on Sunday. This is what next week's going to look like. That's when that process is really going to start.
I agree. All right. Great stuff. We will talk to Marcus Freeman on Sunday. Maybe, fingers crossed, we officially find out who Notre Dame's starting quarterback for the 2025 season is going to be. We are, as of today, 16 days away from the season opener when the Fighting Irish head down to Miami. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, we'll probably slip a little bit more quarterback talk into the next segment. But also, we're going to hear from both Marty Biagi and Mike Mickens. And I guarantee you this, you're going to want to hear what they have to say, especially Marty Biagi, I think. I think Eric and I both had our ears kind of perk up with something that Marty Biagi had to say that you're going to hear coming up here in just a couple of minutes. We will do that. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. Sean Stires with Mr. Eric Hansen from blueandgold.com. As we roll through this Friday, we've been talking a lot of Notre Dame quarterbacks on today's show so far. And we've got some comments from Marty Biagi, Notre Dame special teams coordinator, and Mike Mickens here in just a second. Bobby had a question, though, in the YouTube chat. Do you think going up against this defense/secondary every day in practice can hurt a young quarterback's confidence a little bit? What are your thoughts on that?
I guess if you did it the wrong way, that would be possible. I think the Notre Dame coaching staff is smart, knowing how to make iron sharpen iron. So I trust this coaching staff with how they go about doing it. I know, for example, going the opposite way can hurt a quarterback and make him not realize what he's going to be facing full speed. Mm-hmm. And a good example of that was the 2007 season where Charlie didn't want Jimmy Clausen and the offense to be overwhelmed by the defense and didn't do things full speed, and they ended up getting their butts kicked to the tune of 3-9. So I think you have to measure both those things and do it in the right way. But I think if you're, so fragile that you can't do that in a good structured environment and you're not a competitor enough to handle that, then probably Notre Dame's not the school for you. But I do think there's a way where you could just make it so relentlessly chaotic and unpleasant that perhaps it would hurt their confidence.
It's not like these quarterbacks haven't completed any passes against the secondary. The secondary is really good, as we've talked about, but at the same time, we've seen some of the videos, and like these guys have had their wins along the way as well. That's part of it. And to what you were saying, the iron sharpens iron aspect.
Yeah. I mean, there were times Notre Dame didn't have these kind of athletes on defense, and you couldn't simulate that in practice. And then it would be a rude awakening in games. They've got it now, so they can turn the dial up and down.
Yes, exactly. Turn it up to 11. That's where it goes. Okay, so we talked to special teams coordinator Marty Biagi after practice today. He was asked about who the punt returners and the kickoff returners are going to be or might be this season. Here is the answer from Marty Biagi.
Will Pauling and Faison have done a great job at as the punt returners with Dallas Golden getting a lot of work back there as well. Aeneas Williams and Jane Grayhouse, probably those five have really stood out. At kick return, we've had Price and Love as the main two guys back there. And so, even when you talk to J1 and you look, the two returners that were in the game versus us in the last, in the Orange Bowl, they were the two starting running backs. So, if we're gonna spend time and block it up, we want to get our best athletes back there that we know can hit it. Nolan James has done a great job.
I'm just going to take a guess here, Eric, and say it wasn't when he said Nolan James that your ears perked up when you were listening to Marty Biagi's answer to who the kickoff return men are going to be. Both Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. What did you think when you heard him say that?
Well, I figured a lot of people would have an opinion about that. I like it, and I'll tell you why. I think Jeremiah Love wants to do it, not because it'll win him the Heisman, but because it makes them a better team. There's not as many live kickoff returns as you think in a season. Notre Dame had 17 in a 16-game season last year.
Really? Was that all it was?
Yeah. And the year before it was 21 and 13. So you're not even averaging 2 kickoff returns a game. There's a lot of touchbacks and there's fair catches now and so forth. I don't know that you would see Jeremiah Love and Price on every kickoff return, but I think especially in the playoff games and so forth, I think that makes sense. I like it. I know a lot of people want to put these guys in bubble wrap. I did talk to Jeremiah Love, what was it, about a week ago, and I asked him about that, and he wants to be used a lot. I mean, he had 10 carries a game last year. He wants to be in the passing game. He wants to be on kickoff returns and so forth. I think if he was hesitant about it, then, yeah, I wouldn't push him out there. And Jadarian Price, before they, a couple of years ago, he was actually one of the top kickoff returners by average in the country. So I love the fact that you're putting your best people out there. Now, again, would there be a role for Nolan James to do it some too? Yeah, I would think so. But I love the fact that they are considering strongly having Jeremiah Love out there. And man, did it get a lot of reaction on Twitter.
I'm sure. I mean, like you talk about putting the opposing team, into crisis when you're trying to determine, okay, now how are we going to kick this? Because both of these guys are legit home run threats. And you talked about touchbacks and, more fair catches and stuff like that. I do wonder if these guys aren't behind the goal line. Do we see maybe a few more returns because of the fact that you have these guys out there on the field?
You might. And I think what people don't realize is how much Jeremiah Love played on special teams last year, not on kickoff returns as much. I think he had a couple, but on punt coverage, he was a gunner on punt coverage. He was on 26 punt coverage plays last year. If you take away those and put that into kickoff return, I think that's a good trade.
I think so as well. And I think that all, to your point about not having them out there all the time. I mean, I would definitely, if these are the two guys that they think are the best options for this and everybody's in on it, which they seem like they are, the first couple games of the season, I would definitely have them back there as much as possible. But then once you get into the season, there are times like when you look at the flow of the game and how the workloads are going and things like that, you can give a guy, you can say, okay, Nolan James, you get out there for Jeremiah or Jadarian, whichever it happens to be. There are ways that you can do it, but then there's also, you're in a close game in the fourth quarter. You put both of these two guys back there after the other team just scored, and I think that's a big advantage Notre Dame in that aspect.
I agree.
So the follow-up question that Eric had for Marty Biagi was this a difficult conversation at all with Marcus Freeman to convince him to use Jeremiah Love on kickoff returns?
I don't feel like it was difficult. It was something that talking with J1 and Free, and we just feel like if we feel like we have something schemed up really well, that we want to get our best playmakers on the field. And so that's something that at the end of the day, Coach Free has all the full decision-making over our roster and who goes in and who doesn't, but he's not going to play scared or timid if we think we can make a game-changing play.
And that's I think that's the big takeaway, that he's not playing scared or timid, obviously, because you do have the chance to make big game-changing plays with these guys. Kind of sounds like, again, going back to the fact that Marty Biagi was talking about an Orange Bowl semifinal last year where J1 Sider was coaching. Singleton and Allen were both back there returning kickoffs. Sounds like he might have had a little sway in all of this as well.
I agree. And when you think about Notre Dame has a player on their team now called Devontae Smith, but Alabama had a Heisman Trophy winner, Devontae Smith, and he handled a lot of returns that year in addition to being a really good wide receiver. And he wasn't built nearly as sturdy as Price or Jeremiah Love.
Very true. Very true. So it's going to be exciting seeing those two guys both back there on kickoffs, potentially with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price back there. And we kind of glossed over the fact Will Pauling and Jordan Faison sound like the first name out of his mouth was Pauling when it came to punt returns. And we've seen them back there more or less fielding punts from time to time. That's one thing that we have had the ability to see in terms of what they look like as a true returner. We haven't got to see very much of. We saw a lot of Jordan Faison last year, but so I'll be curious to see if it does end up being Will Pauling as the number one guy.
Yeah, that's an interesting option. At a point, I thought Aeneas Williams was going to win the job. And that Dallas Golden is still in that conversation is kind of interesting. The freshman cornerback, such a dynamic two-way player down at Tampa Berkeley Prep. So I think it's going to be really interesting. But Will Pauling, this month versus the Will Pauling we saw physically compromised a little bit in the spring. Wow, it's a real difference on how quickly he moves. He's going to be exciting whether he's returning punts or just catching passes.
We were talking about him earlier this week, and it like he is of anybody. It's hard for anybody at this point to be under the radar because we talk about everybody so much. But because of what you talked about, because he wasn't completely healthy in the spring, and we've had limited opportunities to see him, like he's feeling more and more like he could be a real big factor, both special teams and offense for this Notre Dame team this season.
Yeah, I think he can. There's some people that feel like he might be Notre Dame's second leading receiver. I think his versatility of being able to be a slot receiver and play on the outside is going to give him more opportunities than if he were just a slot receiver sharing time with Jaden Greathouse, who's an amazing slot receiver.
One more break, and then we'll come back. We'll wrap up this first hour. I got another comment from Marty Biagi and one from Mike Mickens on the safeties as well. We will do that next when we return. Wrapping up hour number 1 of Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com with Eric Hansen from blueandgold.com. I'm Sean Stires. We talked a lot of Notre Dame quarterback earlier this hour. We just heard some comments from Marty Biagi, the Notre Dame special teams coordinator, as well as, well, we haven't heard from Mike Mickens yet. We're going to hear from Mike Mickens here in just a minute. I forgot exactly where we were, Eric.
We heard from him telepathically.
Yes, that's it. We heard from him telepathically. So Noah Burnett, Notre Dame's latest kicker transfer. They've gone to the portal quite a bit the last few years for kickers. Marty Biagi talked today about focusing on being automatic from 50 yards and in is their top goal for the field goal unit. And then he was asked exactly how that's been going during training camp.
I feel, confident that, we just ended actually, today on a game winner, and it was on the 32-yard line. So it was right at a 50-yarder, and he put it right down the middle. So it was good, but he's got to show he can do that every time. And that's, I think, the biggest thing is we've really picked up in block 3 and block 4, and then right after block 4, we'll get more into true situational scripting as opposed to just trying to get us a good amount of kicks in to where they can get working.
Okay, so they were good. They ended practice on a positive note today. I guess that's one thing. He wasn't very expansive beyond that, though, Eric. So where's your confidence kind of lie if you were putting this on scales right now in the field goal game?
I would put it on the scales of cover the result of what the scale's going to say. Because, well, here's a couple things.
Is that a word salad? Is that what you just did?
Marty gives you word T-bones. He's pretty straightforward guy. So if he dances a little bit,
yeah,
it's very intentional. And the fact that they didn't bring any kickers in, they brought the punter in and they brought the cornerbacks in. And this was a day for special teams and for the kickers and punters, and we didn't interview any of them. And
we got
to
the
me,
long snapper, but not the kicker. Yeah,
right. So that was, to me, was a tell.
So too.
Now, have we seen this show before? Because Marty Biagi a lot of times is helping to either remake a swing, remake confidence with guys like Spencer Schrader and Mitch Jeter. Yeah, we have seen that in August, and then it turns out pretty good once they get into September and beyond. But I think this is a definite work in progress. And, Marty emphasized the positive result. But I think if we were to really drill down on him, I mean, we're so happy with the Jeremiah Love comment that we weren't going to drill down on the kickers as much at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think he would say, well, we'd like to see him be more consistent. And I think that's true. And I think it's open. I think Eric Schmidt could end up winning this job because he definitely has a powerful leg, probably more powerful than Noah. Now, is he more accurate? We don't know that.
That's the question. And most of we haven't seen field goals in a while, and that could be intentional as well. But most of the ones that we did see were all kind of hovering around that left upright. And was it
magnetic?
Was it out? Was it over? Yeah, exactly. Drawing magnetically to that left upright. Okay, final comment. Here is the Mike Mickens comment. Probably the biggest question he's facing. Who is going to be the starting safety next to Adon Schuler? Here is Mike Mickens.
Still evaluating. So just continue to evaluate and continue to let it go out. But we got some good safety and we got some good options.
What's that competition been like during camp?
It's been good. It's been competitive. That's what you want with it. That room right there, that group is we got some good options.
Even less definitive.
That's a word salad.
Yeah, that was much more word salad.
Yeah, there was dressing and croutons and everything in that one.
I just got to think it's going to be Stroman at this point. Like, he feels like the front runner to me. There's a lot of talent with those other guys, but especially season opener and, like beginning of the season, the veteran feels like the choice. What do you think?
I've gone back and forth with this. I thought Stroman for sure. And then I thought, well, Luke Talge has been out there with the ones. It's been pretty split. and he's super talented and 6'4", which Stroman isn't.
True.
But here's what I think. I think the top four are going to play a lot. I don't think you'll see Adon Schuler maxed out with reps like he and Xavier Watts were last year. I think you will see four players play a lot. Adon Schuler, Jalen Stroman, Tay Johnson, and Luke Talich. I think that's going to be more equitable in the reps. So who starts and who doesn't matter as much.
All right. I agree. I think we're going to see all of those guys, as well. Eric Hansen, blueandgold.com. Any parting words for us? Anything that you'd like to let our listeners know about before you head out?
Lots of wall-to-wall coverage, and if you'd like to give us a test drive, we'd love to have you for a week. Give us $1. We'll give you 7 days of Blue and Gold to see what we're about.
All right. Sounds good. Eric Hansen from blueandgold.com. I will see you Sunday. Maybe we'll know who the quarterback is at that point.
Sounds great. And if we don't, we'll go out and have a beer and drown our sorrows.
There you go. I think that's the way to go. Thanks, Eric. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
That's Eric Hansen, of course, from blueandgold.com. First hour in the books. Second hour, rapid fire coming up. Michigan, you may have heard, the hammer dropped on them today. We'll talk about that and more coming up in hour number 2. I am joined by both Vince D'Addario and Bobby Hensley in hour number 2. Boys!
I'm here. There I am.
I'm not sure if that microphone's working. Bobby, pull that closer.
Hi, how are you?
There we go. It was another matter of a button being pushed. It was operated.
Well, nobody wanted to listen to him anyway, so it's okay.
That's
As long as Vince and I are on the same page, we're okay. Neither one of us want to hear the other one.
That's right. That's right. All right, enough small talk. We've got a lot of things to talk about in this hour. There's Michigan bashing to do. I
mean,
can assure you.
That's why I'm here. I'll tell you right
People
now.
who are in the room or on the microphone right now. The NCAA dropped down its penalties on Michigan for the Connor Stallions sign stealing scandal today. Stallions received an 8-year show cause. Former Wolverine head coach Jim Harbaugh got a 10-year show cause. That basically means that neither one of those guys can be hired by a college for those amount of times. Head coach Sharon Moore is going to serve a 3-game suspension this season. They were self-imposing 2 games. The NCAA gave him an extra game. There's also going to be a lot of money in a fine that's expected to be between 20 and 30 million bucks. There's a $50,000 initial levy, 10% of the football budget, 10% of the cost of football scholarships for this season, and the loss of all postseason competition revenue sharing for the 2025 and 2026 seasons. Stallions also was found to have arranged the illegal scouting of at least 13 future Michigan opponents on at least 58 occasions from 2021 to 2023. So I'll just go ahead and start with Vince. We'll work our way around. Are the penalties too much, not enough, or just right for Michigan?
They are somewhere between the right amount and not quite enough for me. Like, I'm not going to say, oh, it's a slap on the wrist, because it's not. I mean, $30 million is not a slap on the wrist. Like, that's a legitimate amount of money.
It's the biggest monetary fine I've ever heard for anything like this.
So, like, that's legit. Like, I have no problem with that. Given Harbaugh a 10-year whatever and Stallions an 8-year what, Jim Harbaugh's never going to coach in college again.
And Stallions wasn't going to either for that.
Correct. I mean, it probably hurts Stallions maybe more than it would Harbaugh, because I don't know what his job prospects actually are. I think he's coaching high school football right now. So, maybe that hurts him a little bit more than it would. It doesn't hurt Jim Harbaugh at all, first of all. I would be very clear on that. And, the losing out on postseason revenue, considering the Big Ten's going to get like 4 teams in and, that whole thing. Like, those are legit, hit him in the pocketbook. I'm cool with that. I wanted, as much as it doesn't matter, it matters. I wanted wins taken away. I wanted some wins taken away.
This is what I don't get.
Well,
go ahead, Bobby.
I was going to say, Vince, do you feel like they should be forfeiting their championship or any games or any wins?
I mean, if they're going to take wins away for 2 years from Notre Dame because somebody wrote a paper for a couple of kids.
Everett Golson, you're talking about?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, there was more than Everett Golson. It
was more than that. Right. It was a handful of kids, right? And Notre Dame self-imposed, like they reported that on their own. Like they said, hey, we messed up, whatever. And they took away 2 years worth of wins. Like, that's legit. They should be taking some wins away from Michigan. That's where I'm at.
But if you take away wins, are you saying if you take away any wins, that means they don't get to keep their championship?
100%. Bye. Like, they won some of those games that got them to the national championship because they cheated.
What they did here was worse than like the Fab Four or the Fab Five.
Absolutely.
When and like banners were lost, and
it was also worse than Reggie Bush and what USC did.
Yeah,
they got it.
This actually directly related to wins and losses. It wasn't off-field
field
recruiting type stuff.
Correct.
No, I was going to ask that question to both of you guys. What do you think about USC? Do you think when they had their championship and their Heisman's lost, was that stiff enough penalty for them back then? And how do you think that compares to now with Michigan? Either one of you.
And that's exactly it. Like, they technically had a championship stripped from them, right? And Reggie Bush had a Heisman Trophy stripped from him. And again, this was for a recruiting, or
it's legal now.
It was impermissible benefit. He took he got into a house, but given to by an agent. Or
impermissible benefits.
Right. Yeah, impermissible benefits.
Exactly.
Correct.
the stuff that Connor Stallions did and the stuff that they obviously found Jim Harbaugh to be culpable of, and the current head coach, by the way, like if these two guys are getting 8 and 10-year show causes, why is the current head coach only getting a 3-game suspension? Because they obviously found him to be guilty to at least some extent in all of this as well. So what, why the difference there? That's what I don't get. Michigan, to Vince's point about the academic stuff that Notre Dame did, when they self-reported,
Right.
by the way,
Right.
Michigan did and especially Jim Harbaugh did everything that he could to try to hide from this and be as evasive as possible in all of this. Why is Michigan not paying a stiffer cost? Now, again, the monetary thing is pretty much unprecedented. I've never heard of like $20 to $30 million. It's the first time I've heard of anything this close.
Yeah, that's massive. And I give credit for that part.
But they should be forfeiting wins and a championship as a result.
100%.
Right. If you're going to penalize them, what are you penalizing them for? Something that happened during their championship season, right?
Absolutely.
So how can you say that the games are fine and, we're going to let you keep all that? Do you think the penalty would be different if Harbaugh was still there? Because he obviously left knowing what was coming down the pipe.
I think it would have to be.
I think the penalty would be different if they didn't win the championship. I think they are vacating wins. If
you think they would have vacated if it wasn't
the whole season?
Possibly, yeah.
You have to. I think you have to.
I think they're tiptoeing around the fact that they won the title, and so they don't want to take that away.
Yeah.
And so basically, Michigan's paying $30 million for a title. That's basically what this is amounting to. Because look,
there's precedent now. Now we can say, if you get fined enough money, you can keep all your wins.
Yeah.
You don't think that's right?
No. And look, USC got scholarships taken away.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
crippled them for years later.
Correct. Let's cripple these guys. Cripple them. Cut them out at the knees.
And I know the money is a fine, but like get rid of some scholarships.
Yes.
Don't give them that amount of money that they have to lose. Cut how many scholarships they can have.
Yeah.
They messed up. They went in the wrong. They were illegal.
And they tried
we're
to hide
telling
it
them
too.
if you pay it enough, we're okay.
And they tried to hide it too. Like that's the other thing. They were not upfront about it. They're like, yeah, our bad.
And almost funny about it.
Exactly.
They almost, to your point, Vince, they almost like laughed about it. Like, yeah, but we won.
Right.
Exactly.
And they're being.
I don't like when I
agree
agree with Vince.
Well, I mean, when
John in the YouTube chat says they should be banned from the postseason. I mean, I'm not as concerned about that. I think, like to me, the wins needed to be vacated more than them being banned from the postseason because they're going to lose all the money. Even the indirect money. Like they're going to lose their share of Big Ten postseason revenue from like Ohio State and Penn State and whoever else.
Those are big,
but they're losing out.
Who does that hurt though?
It hurts Michigan.
In what way though? I mean, that's not enough. That's not enough.
They have enough. $30 million in today's world.
I'm okay with that.
That's a lot.
I think that I do think that that's enough. Sure. I think scholarships should have gone. I think that wins should have gone. And they said something in the report about how they didn't want to, the current people on the staff or the current kids on the team didn't have anything to do with it, and they didn't want to punish those kids. Then take away the wins. Punish the people that were here then.
Right. That's why you take away wins. And, when has that like the NCAA, maybe it's the evolution of the NCAA because like that kind of stuff never mattered before because it was typically once you go through this investigation process, it was always the current, like to what John is saying, a postseason ban, like it has always been that kind of thing that's happened. Now, the NCAA has essentially tried to steer away from postseason bans recently, with any of these different kind of things. So I don't mind them not banning Michigan from the postseason. I just think that there should have been stiffer for what happened. But to Vince's point, I think the reason they did this is because they did win the national championship and they don't want to strip their national championship is what it comes down to.
Yeah, but now you're almost telling them they got away with it because, like Vince said, you paid for it. You paid for your own way out of doing all these illegal things. Yeah. And any other team, school, whatever, that year, they got in trouble for stuff or did stuff illegally. Doesn't matter because Michigan, they did it better. And what bugs me about that year is they only had to win 2 games to get to the playoff. And then So it wasn't like they were like the number one all year dominant team. They had a weak schedule and they beat Ohio State, made the playoff.
By the way, at his post-game press conference after the national championship, Harbaugh was asked what it means to be a Michigan man, and part of his answer, quote, "You don't lie, you don't cheat, you don't steal."
And then he
End
left
quote.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, so a question yesterday from Salty Virginia Peanuts in the YouTube chat that we didn't get to. I guess he actually asked it on the Champions Lounge for the We In, We Out show. The biggest question, Salty, in the Big Ten this year is Michigan. They were much better in the second half of Moore's first season as head coach. If they carry that level of performance forward, beating Ohio State again, Sharon Moore will be the Big Ten Coach of the Year. Bobby, are you in or out on that?
I'm out because he's not even going to, if they continue to win games and stuff, he's not even there for a quarter of the season, right? With all the sanctions and stuff. The whole Michigan thing, I just don't, I think they bought their championship. They went around the rules. They got everything done. They're not going to be what they were before. So to me, it doesn't even matter because you got to play by the rules. And they've opened up the rules so much. You can pay players. You can get these scholarships. I don't think that that's fair.
I don't think he's a great coach to begin with. And he's obviously going to be missing from a few games. I think it's 2 this year and 1 in 26. But regardless, he's going to miss 3 games. They're going to win the Central Michigan game. Stop the presses. Doesn't matter if Sharon Moore is there or not. I think the other one is like Nebraska or something like that.
Yeah.
Pretty good chance of winning that one too. But again, I don't know that this Michigan. First of all, Michigan team is way overrated. If he gets this team into the playoff, give him the coach of the year. That's fine.
Yeah.
But if that's not, I don't think that's going to happen. And so, no, he's not a coach of the year candidate. In my opinion.
What did he earn to be the head coach, or did he just fall into it because Harbaugh left?
I think it fell into his lap because they were scrambling. Right.
Because Harbaugh was suspended for a couple games last year, and Sharon Moore was the interim coach.
The same
while
games,
Harbaugh was suspended.
The same Central Michigan game, the same,
but I'm saying,
Michigan. Yeah.
Like that's, you asked how he got the job. I think
that
is part of how he got the job.
Sean, he was passionate about Michigan, about Jim Harbaugh, and we got to see a grown man cry on national television. So that's why he got the job.
Vince, I've seen you cry about someone stealing cookies away from you at a press box, so I'm not sure.
But I wasn't on national TV. Wasn't on national TV, okay?
I don't think that they're the biggest question, though. Like, I think, are they because the question from Salty was the biggest question mark in the Big Ten is Michigan. I think really it's Illinois and Indiana. I think those are the 2 biggest question marks this year.
Well, and he said in the chat here, he said not coach of the year for college football, just coach of the year for the Big Ten.
Right. Yeah, if he gets them to the playoff, I absolutely think that he'll probably be the Big Ten coach of the year. But again, I think Illinois and Indiana are bigger question marks. Is Indiana going to come anywhere close to duplicating what they did last year? And is Illinois going to be able to live up to all the preseason hype that is on them coming into the season? That is largely based on, let's be honest, beating South Carolina in a bowl game last year when I don't know exactly who had what players at that. But that's a large part of why Illinois has so much hype on them, I think, coming into this season, because they beat a decent South Carolina team in the bowl game last year.
And then you have to look at how much you value bowl games. I know that you just said that, but like how many players are in it and what is their motivation during it? Even if you have the good players, do they really care?
Well, and that was, because of what happened at the end of last year, and you had South Carolina and media saying that they should have been in the playoff and everything else. And then they go lay an egg in the postseason, and it's like, oh, well, then Michigan, Illinois must be really good then because they beat a hot South Carolina team. There are a lot more issues to that statement than the reality of it. So,
yeah, I kind of agree with you. Like, as you're saying, like, we don't know anything. And like, there's so much change every year on the rosters, like, and with transferring. Like, so you don't know how motivated they are during the bowl game, but then you also don't even know who's going to be there and how good they're going to be. But like, I think Illinois, I don't know if this is the direction we're supposed to go. But I think Illinois, they're going to start losing early, and then
The
you'll
direction you go is never the direction we're supposed to go.
Well, that's why I
Do
always,
the opposite, Bobby.
that's why I always try to find you, Sean.
Come
You
on,
keep me on the
George.
rails. You put me right in the middle. If I could think like you, I'd be better.
I don't know about that. Fill in the blank. A second season of the docuseries, Here Come the Irish, will follow Notre Dame football again this season. It's blank that it won't drop on Peacock until December 8th. Vince, blank stare. Go ahead.
It's bogus. Okay. Like at least they teased us with a couple of episodes early on
Right.
last time. We got to see some camp stuff, some summer stuff, that guy, how they pick the captains, they at least teased us with a couple episodes prior to the season last year. And then it got us through kind of that off period after Notre Dame was done. We got some more stuff, and then we got more after the postseason. So they did a great job of it last year. Why are they waiting till December now? Come on, give me something. I blame Peacock.
I think it's always that, right? They know they must have a reason why, but I feel like the perfect week to start releasing episodes would be on the bye week because there's no game. There's something to watch.
Good point,
there.
Bobby.
That's a great point, Bobby.
First good point today. Congratulations.
Ever, you might say. But I just think that would be the perfect time to start it because wow, I got a bell.
You got the bell, baby.
Bell is back.
But, I mean, I don't like waiting till after the season. If you're a fan, you're going to watch the games and you already know what happened. I think releasing it after the season is almost worthless. There's no way there's that many likes, that many views of that stuff after the season. I think you need to do it during the season. And if you can't turn it around in a week or two, like Hard Knocks does, then I don't know what the point is.
Well, I understand why they don't do it during the season because it is college and, it's an in-house production and they can obviously control the message much better by waiting until the end of the season to determine exactly how they want to edit and what they want to show and all that stuff. But I like your point about the bye week. That felt like not having a game coming up that week after Miami because you've got that dead week in between Miami and Texas A&M. That felt like a perfect week to drop like one or two episodes as a teaser because, I mean, look, you just came off a season that saw you go to the national championship game and like everything that's happened in the off season. In the meantime, that's what the first couple episodes of last year were about anyway. So like, I feel like that would have been the perfect time. It's it's more than disappointing. I think that you got to wait all the way until December for it.
Yeah, and plus when you get to December, you have so much going on. There's so much stuff to watch. All the people are watching the Hallmark Christmas movies.
Yeah.
But I'm joking. But like everybody's got their own family traditions and you're gearing up for the playoffs. So hopefully Notre Dame's already a part of. So you don't need to see week 1 against Miami, maybe. Like, I don't think that any of it makes sense to wait that long.
Bobby O'Shea asked, what's this year's Peacock game? It is the North Carolina State game this season, and that will be the week after Boise State, October 11th. That'll be the Peacock game this year. Take a time out. When we come back, we will wrap up Rapid Fire. We've got some more Notre Dame topics and more. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Rapid Fire and Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com continue with Vince D'Addario and Bobby Hensley. I'm Sean Stires. There's another question we didn't get to yesterday from Josh. He says the Notre Dame, this is a we in, we out question. The Notre Dame offense will have more passing touchdowns than rushing touchdowns this season. In or out on that, pondering Vince D'Addario.
I'm out. I think they're going to be a ground and pound game. And I think that the quarterback's going to get into the end zone a few times on his feet. And I think, the combination of Love and Price and, Logan James, I just think that there's a lot of guys that are going to get their hands on the football and get across the goal line on their feet. So I'm going to say I'm out.
I don't like that we're agreeing so much, Vince. That's not our vibe, but I'm out as well because they're just inherently, if you get close to the goal line, you're not going to keep throwing it. You're going to run it in, and you have one of the best rushing attacks of any college football team. Why wouldn't you just run it in and pound them down and wear them out and get more touchdowns that way?
They had almost twice as many rushing touchdowns last year as passing touchdowns. 45 rushing touchdowns, 24 passing touchdowns.
It'll be closer.
Because you're taking Riley Leonard.
Yeah.
You're taking Riley Leonard out. Now, I think we do expect Jeremiah Love to have at least a few more touchdown runs this season. I would expect Jadarian Price to have more this year as well. But it's just that's a lot, because even if the rushing touchdowns drop to 30, do we think that the quarterback, a first-time starting quarterback, having this kind of running attack at his back is going to, be 30-plus touchdown passes? I think that's a big number for a first-time starter to get to this year. So I've got to be out on that as well.
No. Well, I was just going to say, I think you're absolutely right. There's so many reasons. I don't even know why that would be comparable. I think that 30 touchdowns for a rookie quarterback is not going to happen.
So we got some news after Notre Dame football practice today about who the punt and kickoff returners are going to be this season. Talked a little bit about this in the first hour of the show. Here is Marty Biagi.
Will Pauling and Faison have done a great job at as the punt returners with Dallas Golden getting a lot of work back there as well. Aeneas Williams and Jane Grayhouse, probably those five have really stood out. At kick return, we've had Price and Love as the main two guys back there. And so, even when you talk to J1 and you look, the two returners that were in the game versus us in the last, in the Orange Bowl, they were the two starting running backs. So, if we're gonna spend time and block it up, we want to get our best athletes back there that we know can hit it. Nolan James has done a great job.
All right, scale of 1 to 10. How big a deal is it that both Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price are going to be returning kickoffs this season? Bobby?
I think that I was looking at Vince. He just captivates me so much.
He mesmerizes you.
I was pointing at you. You take this one.
Yeah, I was like, no, I don't know. I'm always a fan of saving your best athletes for during offense. I understand you might bust one a year, but is that worth it with the risk? You think it is? You think it's worth the risk of having them kick return all year long and maybe getting hurt?
I don't think they're going to be back there for every kickoff return.
Well, then what's the point? Like, so you're saying in the big games,
because when they are on the field, they are both home run threats, and there's a decision, that the guy on the other side of the ball has to make. Who are we going to kick to if we can't kick this to the end zone? Because a lot of teams are doing the fair catch thing these days. But if I'm Notre Dame and I've got Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love back there, I'm not fair catching if that ball's not going into the end zone. I want those guys going as much as possible. To your point, Rocket Ismail didn't seem to suffer from it. Tim Brown didn't seem to suffer from it when they were playing full-time on offense and returning kickoffs, and they were major factors in the game. That's like Marcus Freeman has prioritized special teams, and I love this decision. What do you think, Vince?
Oh, it's off the charts for me. When I was driving home and listening to you and Mr. Hansen talk about this, when I heard the Marty Biagi cut, I was like, okay. I was shocked, but shocked in a great way. You put those two guys back there. other team, like if I'm the special teams coordinator and I see 4 and 24 back there, I'm telling my kicker to either kick it through the end zone or kick it out of bounds. I don't even care. You are not letting those two guys return kicks. And that is a strategy, and that isn't a benefit to Notre Dame.
I love that Bobby O'Shea in the YouTube chat is calling out Bobby Hensley. Bobby Bubble Boy Hensley. Let's just put them all in bubble wrap. Put them all in bubble wrap. This is not tackle football anymore. Let's protect everybody. Come on.
Home runs, baby.
That's right.
Home runs are great, but like I'm saying, it all sounds great, and neither of us know the future. But like if you get a guy that gets hurt on a kickoff, which is when a lot of injuries occur because you have a lot of collisions, I don't think it's worth the risk to have one return a year, maybe be a touchdown. That's your one home run for the whole year.
I think
it could be the first game and then nothing else, because like you say, all you're really doing is hoping they kick it out of bounds or out the back of the end zone.
I think the kickoff return to start the second half in the Sugar Bowl made a pretty big difference in the course of the season. And Harrison took it back.
I understand. I just don't know if it's worth the risk when you're getting all these. There's so many injuries.
No risk it.
Kickoffs.
No risk it. No biscuit, baby.
I think the offense should be better, that you don't have to worry about the special teams on kick returns.
Let's ride. And like Bobby O'Shea is also saying, like Eric said in the first hour, there were only 17 returns in 16 games last season. I do think that number goes up again when you've got those two guys back there potentially. And as Eric said, and I agree with him as well, I don't think they'll be back there all the time. Like over the course of the game, if you're pulling away from somebody, like you can give those guys a break. You can roll Nolan James out there. You can roll Aeneas Williams or whoever else, Jabron Payne out there. You can switch it up. They don't have to be back there all the time. But if I'm in a close game in the fourth quarter and the other team just scored, I want those two guys back there for the chance that they can take it the distance and maybe put the game away for you. Because they are difference makers with the ball in their hands. I want the difference makers to have the ball as much as possible.
But a lot of that comes down to schemes and blocking as well. So if your kickoff return team isn't doing great anyway, then why would you put those guys back there and risk them getting blown up on a play?
Well, you're making the assumption that they're not doing great. What if they are doing great?
Well, you're making the assumption that they are doing great.
Okay, well,
like the Sugar Bowl, they did that.
I think the numbers.
I would have been wrong on the Sugar Bowl. Obviously, that mattered. But then, I don't know. I just don't like putting my guys at risk if it's not. I don't like them consistently being at risk.
I got you. Point made.
Vince disagrees with me.
I think
there's risk involved. I mean, that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Craig in the chat says save them for the big games. Well,
right.
Who's to say what game's a big game and what's not a big game?
Yeah.
Again, like I want them starting the game and then the flow of the game, how many carries they're getting, how many touches and all those different things. Like all that dictates how much they stay in for subsequent kickoff returns. Now, the other thing is if Notre Dame, like to Eric's point about only 17 kickoff returns last year, part of that also has to do with the fact that Notre Dame's defense was that good last year. So you're limiting opportunities for them, organically to return kickoffs. If Notre Dame's defense is anywhere close to what it was last year, there aren't going to be a ton of opportunities. But again, you've got a first-time starting quarterback. I think you need your best players on the field as much as possible, at least going into the game, and then you adjust as the course of the game goes on.
I just feel like then the other way, like, okay, so now if they're winning, you're going to put other guys back there. They're not used to it maybe because the first half of the game, you had different return guys. I just don't like the thought of switching it up. Just take
So you never put in your reserves on either side of the ball then either?
No, never, ever. No, I just mean like if you can do field position games, and obviously it depends, but like if they're banged up a little, and it's like, well, it's a big spot. Why isn't Jeremiah Love returning kicks? Like you got to use them when you need to. College is so different than it used to be. And there's so many, like I say, so many injuries on the kickoffs because they're just running into each other. I just don't feel comfortable using them and being like, okay, well, he might have got dinged up a little bit earlier, but let's throw him in on this kickoff.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that John Gruden says he would die to coach in the SEC.
It's It's hilarious is where I'm at. It's hilarious. Like,
That's pretty good.
that's where I'm
I
at.
think you would die to coach, period, is probably what he's saying.
He's doing
You know?
okay on
and
boxing.
that's fine. Like I get it. He wants to. A coach is a coach, right? And he wants to coach. I get it. But he's doing has a pretty darn nice life, just unboxing gear and doing all the different things that he's doing right now. I don't know that I'd be giving that up all that soon. But when you're a coach, you want to coach, and so I get that. If he coaches again, it's going to be in the NFL. He's got a lawsuit going with the NFL right now. I could see somebody picking him up. I could.
I agree with you. I don't know if either of you saw, he did an unboxing the other day of Clay High School.
Oh, I saw it.
Did see it. Yep.
Yeah.
That was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, though, because
None of that gear was old.
no, and it all had his name on it.
Right.
Like somebody bought all that stuff. Maybe it was him. I
I
don't
was
know.
going to say, I mean, Clay
Somebody
High
went-
School obviously closed. Was it actually leftover stuff, or did they make it just to send?
Oh,
to
no.
John
Well, they
Gruden?
made it just to send him.
That stuff did not
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
That stuff
Under
never
Armour didn't
existed.
exist when he was there. And
That's correct.
We've got less than a minute, so I want to make my point on John Gruden before Bobby cuts me off again. I will just say, again, I think he is desperate to coach. Like to your point, Vince, I don't think he's going to coach in the NFL again because of the lawsuit, because of
Yeah.
everything else.
Blackball.
I think that he's trying to get into coaching to whatever highest level that he can, and I think that he thinks that his entry point is the SEC. So that's what I think. Any final quick, Bobby, if you've got anything to say.
no, about that topic, I don't think he's going to coach anywhere. I think
All right.
that ship sailed.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. It's always quick when we end at 6:40, and it's even quicker when we've got three of us. So have a great weekend. Maybe we find out over this weekend who the starting quarterback is going to be. Question mark. We
Feeling
shall
good about
see.
it.
All right. For Bobby Hensley and Vince D'Addario, I'm Sean Stires. Great stuff in the chat today. We will talk to you next week. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.